Good morning, students. Today we are going to study once more the last lesson, the further explanations of the paragraphs. Further, the author says, besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn, but the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty the village people sitting quietly. Quietly means peacefully, like ourselves. Old Hauser, with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several other besides. Dear students, here Hauser means one that promotes housing projects. Solomon means serious. The explanation of the above lines is Franz felt that the atmosphere in the school was unusual and serious. To add to it, the last benches of the classroom were occupied by the senior villagemen. Among them there was Hauser, who was wearing his three-cornered hat, the retired mayor, postmaster, etc. Students, you can understand these people were over there in the classroom of M. Hamel at the time when M. Hamel was delivering the last lecture of the last lesson in French language. Further, the narrator says everybody looked sad and Hauser had brought an old primer. Here, old primer means basic reader of any language. Thumped at the edges. Here, thumped means torn and damaged. And he held it open on his knees and his great spectacles lying across the pages. The explanation of the above lines is they all looked sad. Hauser had brought his reader, which was old and torn. He had opened it, kept it on his knees, and had placed his spectacles on it. Further, the narrator says, while I was wondering about it all, M. Hamel mounted his chair and in the same grave and gentle tone he had used to me said, dear students, grave means here serious. He said, my children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German, German here language, in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Dear students, as I have already told you that Alsace and Lorraine are the districts of France. The new master, here master means teacher, comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive. The explanation of the above lines is Franz was confused and could not figure out what was happening that day. Just then M. Hamel told them that it was their last lesson in French, as the Prussians in Berlin had ordered that French language would no longer be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, and that the German language be taught instead. So this is the main point over here. German language be taught instead. The German teacher would arrive the next day, and as this was the last lesson in French, he wanted them to pay attention. Them means here students as well as all the villagers who were sitting in the school classroom where M. Hamel was teaching. Further, the narrator says, "What a thunderclap!" Here, thunderclap means used in comparison to refer to something startling or unexpected. So, what a thunderclap these words were to me. Oh, the wretches! That was what they had put up at the town hall. Wretches means here it refers to an unfortunate happening. The explanation of the above lines is Franz was shocked to know that he could not learn French any longer, and now he knew the latest news that had been put up at the bulletin board. Here, bulletin board, as I have already told, it means notice board of the town hall. Further, the narrator says here, "My last French lesson. Why, I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs or going sliding on the Sar." Dear students, here Sar means a river which passes through France. So in these lines you can see that Franz is regretting. The explanation of the above lines is Franz regretted for not being serious towards studies and for wasting his time in hunting birds' eggs and playing in the Saar river. Further, the narrator says, "My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now that I couldn't give up." Here, nuisance means problem or burden, and couldn't give up means could not leave. The explanation of the above lines is till now, Franz considered his books to be an unwanted burden, but suddenly he starts considering them to be his best friends whom he could never leave. The writer wants to show the change in Franz's attitude towards study after hearing the news that he could not learn French any longer. Further, the narrator says, "And M. Hamel too, the idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler." Here, ruler means his iron ruler, which he used to keep with him, and how cranky he was. Cranky means here strange or short tempered. The explanation of the above lines is the news that their teacher M. Hamel was leaving also had a similar impact on him. Impact here means impression. Franz did not want him to go away. He no longer thought the teacher to be short tempered and strict. Dear students, further the narrator says here, poor man, it was in honor of this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes, and now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. Dear students, here Sunday clothes means the best dress that a person has. In other words, occasional wears. The explanation of the above lines is, now Franz knew that M. Hamel was wearing his best dress in honor of this last lesson. He also realized that the village men had come to pay respect and thank M. Hamel for his service for 40 years in that school. Further narrator says it was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. The explanation is, the village men had come to the class as they were also repenting for not have studied well in their childhood. They had come to thank their teacher for his 40 years of service as a teacher of French language. Also, they wanted to show respect to their country and were sad as their mother tongue French would no longer be taught to them. So, dear students, it was very regretting for all the villagers as well as the student Franz. While I was thinking of all this, I means here the narrator, Franz, I heard my name called. Who called his name? M. Hamel, the French teacher. The explanation is, the teacher calls out to Franz as it was his turn to recite the topic of participles. The narrator says, it was my turn to recite. Recite means here to read out. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through, very loud and clear and without one mistake? Dear students, here dreadful rule means frightening. The explanation is, as the news had impacted Franz, he was eager to study, and so he was desperate to show his eagerness. He wanted to be able to recite the topic in one go and without any mistake, and he wanted to please his teacher. His desperation is reflected in his willingness to give away all that he had in return for reciting the lesson well. Dear students, the further lecture and its video will be delivered tomorrow. Thank you, students. Have a nice day. Stay home, stay safe.